Hello, VOD people. I hope you are having a good day. You've had water, food, all the things you need to do, your meds, etc. We are continuing Amalgamation with Penguin. Say hello, Penguin.
Hello.
I fixed it! I fixed the mods. In hindsight, it should have been extremely obvious, because there is one mod that specifically made the dead harder to kill. And I should have just known it was that one instead of spending hours staring through or glaring, honestly, at the Ascendant Mobs config when it had nothing to do with Ascendant Mobs. But we have it all figured out. And it's good. Hopefully, now we actually can kind of know what we're doing. Maybe. And get Void Blossom.
Yeah.
So let us hop on in. I just want to get back into this. Let me invite. Yes. There we go.
Yippee. So where are we setting up a base, or are we just gonna be nomads?
Probably nomads. I don't think it's quite needed, considering we're just trying to kill that is not. I'm pressing all the wrong button. Which button do I have it? What is this?
Well, I
don't know what that is.
This was gonna be like a long-term type thing, or just like we're kind of just half doing this just cause.
What did I keybind that to? Keybinds. Boys? I was thinking it was just gonna be short term.
Okay, that's fine. Then I won't.
Since I'm hosting it too. Why did I put it to I? Okay. I'm gonna make a group in game because of the other mod that makes the things hear us.
Right.
Hello, Billy Bob. A group has been made. I'm gonna mute up in Discord.
Okay.
There we go. So if need be, I can hear you all see all the things. And we are... What was I doing? Was I trying... I was trying to get XP. Yeah. And now it should be way easier. Yeah. Yeah, this is how it should have been. This is what should have been occurring. This entire time, this is what should have been happening. But that wasn't. Also, I realized I wasted diamonds on a glaive when I could have done my favorite two-handed claws. Got essentials on my VR Minecraft. Ooh, nice. Oh, yeah. Hello, those are a lot of people. You have a diamond helmet, bro.
That reminds me, I thought I had set it in server, but I don't believe I did. But if we add the mod Livecraft to this server, it does nothing for people who aren't playing without VR, but we can play on VR on the server. Okay.
Yeah, I can add that in. I've added in plenty of mods to this purely for content creation, so I'm a-okay with that.
Yep, and I believe even people who aren't using it, like people who aren't gonna be in VR, don't even need it. Only the people who are gonna play in VR.
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of that before I die to it. There we go.
Which should work correctly.
Oh, there you are.
Apparently my resource packs decided to shut themselves off, so I'm re-enabling them. Yeah.
Oh.
No, it's fine. It's nothing crazy. Where are you?
I am back in the dungeon we started in. Diamond!
Oh wait, we have we have that. I'm like, why the fuck am I so short? I remember.
The Minecraft comes alive.
The villager thing, but that also reminded me we have origins.
Yes. I think I'm gonna try and go generally deeper down and get me some diamonds so I can have my claws.
Okay.
Watch me die to going down too much. You should be able to see me on the map. Yeah, I'm back at start. I don't trust. These are... There's no... It's diamond termites, isn't it? It's a diamond termite! You suck!
Are you back at fun?
Yes, I am. Why are you only heads? Okay. Whatever. I'll keep... I didn't keep the diamond shards last time. I will this time, just because. Will you see more of them? I don't need dark metal. I can confidently say that one. Cave? Cave here. Cave have diamond? I don't trust the blossoms. I know it's not nearly this close. Yeah, still, the void blossom's still 100 away. I do not trust blossoms in caves. Even if I know I'm in a lush cave and real- Oh, hey! Is that a mimic? It is a mimic! Hey, mimic boy! You bonkished. What you gonna give me? Fort jar! Cloud and bottle. Give me that.
Oh, can I get the oh.
I can try and get some more mimics if you'd like.
That's fine. If we ever get like a bunch of
What's this? What is? I think it's graveyard. Is this something with the graveyards? I think it is.
Please don't put me in the water.
Oh! You have good stuff. Dark iron ingot?
Artifacts we want to re-roll. We can put them in a chest and then feed that chest
Oof!
Oh yeah, my attacks are actually doing stuff now.
Yeah, it was purely that one mod. So noted, if I open too many of these, I might call upon the dead. I could kill them just- speaking of. I could kill them just fine.
Are you in the cave near spawn?
I am much- oh, mending. I am much deeper down than the cave and spawn.
Okay. Well, I might actually go loot the tower thing now that we actually
That we started
kill
in?
mobs.
Corruption.
Yeah,
Uses?
because I never really got to loot it.
Dark iron ingot? What? Recipes for dark iron. Or uses for dark iron ingot. Coffins. Soul fire braziers. Sarcophagus, more coffin. Mostly just building stuff, so okay. And a candle holder, apparently.
Oh yeah.
Corrupted Illager Breves. Oh, hey, Wither Rose. That's a reef.
Oh, that's a really good pickaxe. It's wooden, but it's good. Is there a way to strip enchants in this mod pack or no?
There should be grindstones.
No, I mean like stripping keeps. Okay.
No. Wait. Let me. Do I remember my own mods? We should have. Let me think. There's one use. I've used this before. This is actually useful. If you put it in a toolsmith table, the thing you use for netherite, I'm pretty sure if it's a wooden pickaxe, you put normal stone on it, not cobblestone, and it will change it to a cobblestone pickaxe, and you can bring it up to diamond by literally just putting it in the table with that. I'm pretty sure we still have that.
Hold on to it.
Actually useful smithing table. Yes, the smithing table. Put a piece of stone on it, and then copper to iron to gold to diamond.
Okay, is there a way to upgrade the size of the backpack, like the small backpack?
The exact same crafting recipe, but put the backpack in the middle instead of the string. And it goes up to a large. Which is... No?
Oh, well, I didn't craft it. You crafted it.
Oh. 4 leather in the corner, 4 wool on each side, backpack in the middle.
Okay, I do need to bring this wooden pickaxe up to diamond then, because that would be really good.
Then you just need to smelt a piece of stone or find a piece of stone somewhere. Is that a... Oh, hey, buddy!
Stone, not cobblestone?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're a spawner. I have so many levels I need to use. Oh, I need to upgrade luck. That's why it's mad at me. No? Oh, speed. Yeah. A little more speed.
I set that line to. I did set it.
Oh,
to
my
that.
knockback,
Okay,
duh.
So,
Missing the obvious answer.
Yeah, we'll just do that.
I should grab more coal. I have arrows whenever we find arrows for you whenever we find each other.
Okay.
Hard at. Hello. You punkish.
No, that's warp dust, rose gold dust, light dust.
Oh, I forgot how much I love getting speed. Oh,
Hey,
I forgot how great this is. Huh, do you want create water enchantment? Do you want to create water?
Oh wait, I do need that.
I could do dual diamond claw or iron claws, but I really want to do the diamond critical thunder. I don't remember what that does either. Hey, got apple. Ooh. Hello, Rafe. Goodbye.
Oh, that can go now.
That's not the right button. This is the right
My
button.
inventory is like obscenely full of stuff.
I guarantee you do not need as much as you probably have.
I kind of do need a lot of this stuff.
Okay, then enjoy your hoarding. For some reason, this is the one mod pack I don't hoard. Or the one, like, instance of me playing Minecraft where I'm not a hoarder.
The only thing is I just need leather, and I don't know how I'm supposed to find out or get out.
Did I add? Hold on, let me think for a second. I need to double check. Hold on. I might have...
I know we can't smell.
You can smelt leather.
Oh,
you can
wait,
smelt.
we can.
You can smelt zombie flesh for leather. Yep. I know. I got really pissed off at some point. I just had to double check that it did. No, it's in there. It's in the recipes.
I swear to God, last time I checked it and it just wasn't working, and I just threw out all my rotten flesh too. Oh well, there's a buttload right there. I'm about to have
stuff in some of these.
Empty inventory. Oh, this is gonna be so good because this is the last thing I need it.
Why do you only have copper? I don't need no copper. I'm checking like every single one of these in the hope there's something. I think it's literally just copper though.
I'm about to have a gold backpack. This is about to be so good.
Ooh.
Wait, dude, where's my string? Motherfucker, I don't have string. I'm just gonna go find cobwebs.
Where am I at this point in the world?
Here.
Oh, hi! I didn't even see you. Hello, goodbye.
Wither skull. For
there are two mods that add enchantments. One is, I think, dragon enchantments, which is just like crazy normal enchantments for typical weapons. Another is enchantments for enchantable staffs, which aren't too hard to make if I remember correctly.
Staffs.
And they can be overpowered.
Yeah, how are we supposed to go about, like... I don't know. I know what I'm thinking of, but I can't think of what I'm thinking of, you know?
Yes and no. I can understand the idea, I can't think of a moment where I could personally apply it to myself. There hasn't been, like, any diamonds here. There's plenty of dark metal. I've gotten plenty of iron ingots. Oh, that actually jump scared me. Hi, Rafe. Goodbye. I'm only down at, like, -30. Okay. Let's cave over here. Give me some diamonds, please. That was a cool... I found the Void Blossom! I found him!
Oh, nice.
Just gonna mark you. Hi, buddy. Waypoint.
Oh, you scared the shit. Where are you coming from?
Oh, I'm gonna die to that. Nope. I was literally on half a heart. No, I'm going away from you. I'm so far away from you. Don't you dare attack again. I'm still healing. Thank you. I just wanted to make a cute little waypoint for you. Thank you. Okay, lovely. I really didn't have to walk all the way back down here for my shit. Aha! Lava River, how are you? Let me just walk over your bullshit. Thank you. Diamonds! I love being low-key in X-Rayer.
It's termites again.
No. I'm deep enough. Termites, the number one way you know it's termites is you find a bunch of stone diamond ore. They can be deep slate diamond ore, but every time I've found them so far today,
I literally gave you all of my... I gave you all my... Oh! Yes, I have wool!
What are you? Oh, you're a tiny child. Goodbye. It was a tiny player model. Or tiny player opponent. What are you? Zombie bruiser? Yeah, you don't do anything against me. Why are you fast? You're level 0 still. What are you doing? What are you doing, buddy? Y'all are nothing. Y'all nothing. I got my claws. Y'all are gonna be dead once I get my second claw. Speaking of, please have 3 diamonds for me.
I am curious what happened to all my coal. I think
3 diamonds! Maybe. Or did you leave it in a furnace in the dungeon?
I'm actively in the dungeon and I always pick up my furnace.
Would you like my diamond glaive? Because I have my
I will take
claws
that.
now. Okay. Let me make my way to you.
Or I might just
make my way downtown.
Down your glaive. No, never mind, I won't.
Making my way through the caves. I'm walking fast, but being careful so I don't fucking die. Do-do-do-do. We're running. Do-do-do-do. Back to the dungeon.
Yeah,
Do-do-do-do. The penguin. Do-do-do-do. It's taking a while now. Do-do-do-do. That's lava there.
Strength, thank you.
Do-do-do-do. There's penguin. That's lava. I'm almost at you somewhere, somehow. Oh, there's a bunch of players up here. Get bonked. All y'all get bonked. I spawned so many people
Well,
here.
just below me.
I'll come up to you in a second. I'm getting XP now. There's so many people down here. Y'all don't stand nothing. I got my claws. Y'all ain't got nothing on my double clicks. Okay, I'm actually coming up to you now.
Okay. Yippee, gold backpack.
What?
I won't be
Oh,
hoarding
still
as
further.
much.
There we go. Peekaboo.
Hi. I figured you're a phantom. Yay, gold backpack!
You want to see a head? Because apparently I got a head.
Oh yeah, he's such an empty... Yay. Yay. Such an empty inventory. I fully went through and just got myself a gold backpack.
Ooh, I'm almost... I need more stuffs. I need...
You like my shield?
I need like a... No.
What's wrong with my
I'm
shield?
dual wielding. I'm dual wielding.
No, I asked.
I can't
do you
shield.
like it, not do you want it?
I kept only hearing, do you want my shield? Can you share the shield again?
Like it.
I only heard, do you want it? Yeah, nice.
I found it in a chest. Where'd my bread go? There's my bread.
Bread.
Arrows.
Oh, yes. Who's what? Oh, that, there we go.
I'm like,
Bad keybinds. Let's pump those over there. It's a good swipe. So you can get Modrinth on VR. Ooh. Can you get Curse Forge on VR? And oh, I have XP I need to use. Do you... Oh, I'm hearing a bunch of jiggly jugglies. Do you still need rotten flesh for leather?
I accidentally
There you
muted
go.
myself.
Do you want rotten flesh still for leather?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Alright, well, I'll hold
Okay.
on to it, because I have more storage than you.
I have a giant backpack, dude.
What
I
backpack
have...
do you have?
I have the large backpack. Let me... This is what I have.
You have more than that.
You sure? Because I don't think gold backpack does that.
Well, I have just a little bit less.
Plus, I'm not hoarding everything, so I have more inventory by default.
Bonk. Bonk.
Poor Ray.
I like the final attack where it just bonks them.
It is poop. Excuse me, I'm getting rid of this first, thank you. Your turn is next. Oh yeah, I am full iron. I wanna get full diamond, that would be great. How far does...
Iron.
I would like to until I get more health. Because I haven't been putting a lot into health. Oh, now I can.
I just started putting more stuff in. I just started putting stuff in health because I just remembered about the mod.
Oh, if you remember, if you come over to me, I have a waste stone right here.
Yeah,
where are these? Okay, good. Where are all these skellies coming from? I don't know.
Oh, I want you to check out this, wooden pickaxe I found. I want your opinion on it.
Running over. Hello. Hi. Right here.
Okay.
Ooh, not bad. Oop.
Yeah, so I'm gonna upgrade that. I need to make stone, actually.
Oh, can't get Modrith on VR. Oh no. So you'd have to fully do it by hand.
Modern on VR. Wait, what? Why?
That is what Tracecar is saying. He can't. I'm gonna go down a few levels and see if you have a way to easily get...
different boot order. Modern has.
Huh?
Modern has a different booting priority over than CurseForge. Because it's deeper leveling than... or deeper level in the
He's saying he can't get it on VR. Not that...
Huh?
He's saying he can't get it on VR.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
What does load order have to do with it's not available, period?
Oh no, not load order, but like the mod?
Nor CurseForge, okay.
I might be just confusing myself. Oh, why'd you break that? I was on the format.
Oh. There are lower levels. I'm trying to figure out how to get you over to them, so there's at least some...
I can just start
better
digging
XP.
down.
Okay.
I mean, just tell me where to dig down or I'm not gonna die.
Let's find a safe spot for you. Where are you? Right here. Let's see if this area is a good spot to dig down.
I mean, die from fall damage. I don't care about the mobs. The mobs I can deal with. You liar, it's cobblestone.
Well, the mod shows stone, the mod showcase.
Oh, yeah, and it does keep bits and chance.
Yeah, where you're at right now is completely safe all the way down to bedrock.
Okay, do you have a copper ingot?
I know where to get one.
Okay, then I'll get one in a bit. So you just want me to dig down to the next level of the...
Yeah, you can do that. I'm telling you, right where you are right now, it is perfectly solid, no caves, no nothing, all the way to bedrock. So if you want to mine all the way down for diamonds, that is a-okay right in that exact spot. Or in that general
mine
area.
down to the next level of the thing.
I have to check again for that. I was checking... Oh, that's a different thing. That's not what I wanted to go into. I was checking specifically for, if it was safe to mine down. Where was... Okay, Blossom's over here, so the other thing was over behind it. And so the copper's over there. At least my VR headset can only open APK files.
Oh, that's a creeper. I don't like that one. I'm not farming that.
You're just cute little guys, though.
No.
Where I'm
it's not.
here. And just kitty cats.
That's a creeper one down there, too. What are my... Oh, my boots. That's fine.
Blossom's right there, so where's the thing I was doing? There it is! Where's your furnace room? Warn us. Warn us. I have lost. I am found. Oh, hi, buddy! So if I found you, furnace room back here. Got it. Pip. Where? How have I lost? How is lost? How is? How have I done? Whoa.
Okay, so I can do that with that. That's nice.
I don't know what that did that. Oh, this is like directly above the Void Blossom. That's not good. Quite there. Oh, yep, that's the Void Blossom. Now, where is... I don't want your library. I don't want all of this. I require...
I actually want to upgrade that.
There we go.
I'm going to do that because that'd be very nice.
Where is your smelt? Oh, there we go. Found it. Whip. Whip. There we go. Oh, hey, blocks of iron. Blocks of coal. I should have taken those.
Oh, I like those.
I like your funny words, Magic Man. Put like little blackstone buttons on it to look like pieces of coal on top of the blocks. I like that.
Oh wait, I'm down to... Oh no, because that would replace my...
Where go that way?
I wish there was a way to strip enchants, like and get them on a book. So I can have the oh, that's a lot of mobs. I'm not gonna peek over that edge. Because there's a lot of enchants on this chainmail chestplate that I want.
Ooh,
but I also already have a diamond chestplate.
Smelt diamond chestplate, upgrade the other one.
Yeah, but the diamond chestplate's gonna be my traveling one because it has water protection.
And
I need water protection. Well, I don't really need it, it's just nice to have.
Oh, there we go.
Where am I getting shot from?
At least it was a short one. Short drop. Hey, is that more? I see more diamonds. Why y'all got a first? What is with this? Thank you. Okay, Mimic, your turn. Hey! Good shit. Crystal heart.
Yeah, because right now I'm just farming up arrows. Next pair.
Oh, diamonds! There you go. Nice.
What the fuck was that sound effect?
Good question.
I mean, at least you heard it as well, and I'm not just hearing shit.
No, I did not hear it.
Oh.
I'm just saying
well,
that is a
just
good
as
question.
bad.
This is why subtitles are good.
I have subtitles, I just wasn't looking at them when I heard it.
No. I'd be
blast
willing to put a
protection's
50% bet. I always go for protection because there's so much fucking shit in this mod pack. I think it'd be a safe bet to say it's probably something from Born in Chaos.
Most likely. Oh no, I hear like 40 other sounds at the same time.
Probably Born in Chaos.
Well, no, I know one of them's at least sophisticated backpacks. I
really want to send you guys the mods I have on my
Motherfucker.
VR Minecraft just so I can see if you guys could join me. Ooh. Is that another memory? Not as player base though. Iron? It's iron
this
ore.
one's good
I
to
don't care
find.
about that.
So yeah, I'm off on this.
Oh, that's a thing. Yes. Hey, diamonds.
Decent XP.
Oh, we should get, if you want, oh, frickin' termites. If you want specific, well, we're already at spawners. There might be Enderman spawners around. I know they can generate in that structure.
Yeah, but that's all the way at the bottom. I was kind of wanting to avoid, or not avoid, but I was wanting to go down there with you. Down into the bottom levels. And I've just kind of just been sitting here farming these up.
I need to go up to the surface to get more food.
Okay, so if I smelt that down, I can get that, and I'm perfectly
Please
fine.
don't be termite. It's a termite!
I just can't go out when it's raining. So yeah, I will just smelt that down.
Hey, a waystone! That helps. That solves my conundrum. There we go. Let's take a golden apple. Oh, hey, more iron.
Well, I have
Fantastic.
like 3 golden apples, and I can craft more.
Is it rare? Hydrate, yes, 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 I will. Where am I? I'm here,
Well,
that's a slight bit of a problem.
Debate how much, like, should I even worry about water protection? And I'm just like, nah, I'm not even gonna worry about it.
That's fire. Whoop.
Because, I mean, most of the rain does, like, what, half a heart to a heart per tick? And it's not hard to get underneath cover real quick.
Yeah, or make cover. Oh, you were here. I found a structure above ground. And it had been looted.
Okay, so now I have a better diamond chestplate. I do need better leggings.
No, not gonna worry about it. I just need food.
What is...
And it
I
is
just thought I'm
sunrise,
breaking
great.
2 on that.
You know what? Where is, what am doing? What is this? I gotta head this way. Maybe I find a new village. And Dusty's finally eating his fucking food. Oh, what are you? Ghouls. Okay, at least you guys fall easy, and you don't do a whole lot. Pipe. Don't need that. You want that? Oh, you were in the VC. I understand now. Yeah, what is it called? Streamer mode. I couldn't hear the join. I do want to keep raw rabbit, yes. I don't need the random rabbit head, but... Wank, wank. Wank, wank. All the animals. will be but meat in my inventory. I love the random animal sizes so much. I love seeing just big ass chickens every now and again. Why do I still have the— I don't need the iron glaive. I don't need that sitting in my hotbar. I got my claws.
Honestly, I feel like I'm doing pretty good for...
First time.
Or like just looting as in general.
Hmm.
Because I feel like I have
God.
pretty decent loot. I mean, I feel like I could honestly have better loot, but what I have is...
Oh, what the what? Okay.
I don't like that I'm squunched.
Oh, that was a big pig. Squanched?
I don't like being squunched. But there's not much I can do about that.
You're getting squanched? What?
I'm squanched. I'm a pipsqueak. I'm tiny.
Okay. I don't think it's squanch. What is that word then? What?
I don't know. I'm squanched is the word that just came to head when I thought of it, and I was like, yeah, that works.
Cheap.
I am curious, because if I smelt this down... Oh, I can't even smelt down your glaive to get diamonds.
Uh-oh.
Motherfucker.
Oh well.
Wait, can I?
It's a modded thing. I can't control that shit.
I can't. Damn it. No diamonds. And I just don't feel like going mining.
Well, that's a
looting
bit of
would
a
give me
problem,
them,
ain't
but-
it?
Yeah, I was hoping looting would give it to me, but...
Not
it
so
appears
much.
it's
Not
going
anymore.
to.
Once upon a time, it was very overpowered. That's why I had better villages in the first place, because it was just that overpowered. And then they made it not so overpowered, so the most you're gonna get is just a few iron blocks.
I mean,
Oh,
that's not
Rob
bad
Rabbit doesn't
either,
work,
so.
you suck.
Small.
It used
Oh,
to
no,
have
every time I get
diamonds
hit, I
hidden
get the
across
sounds
the
of
entire
rabbits.
thing, though. Small.
Okay, yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna just head out and head lower down to greater pastures of farming for resources.
Okay. I am running around slowly collecting up more food. Okay, it's only those. I was hoping maybe I could do fish
Oh, well,
meat
that worked
bundles,
out.
but that is not the case.
Okay, buddy. You cannot, like, jump scare me with that. That's silverfish. I'm not sitting and waiting and farming silverfish. Because of the goofy way mods like spawn in.
Yeah.
I got jump scared by a... Oh, that's it. Oh. Maybe I shouldn't have gone lower down.
Do you need me to come back?
No, I'm good.
I broke, but if I had $1, I wouldn't buy the new build you posted. Thank you. I was very happy with it. I literally, when I was trying to figure out assets for like the next couple weeks, I was literally just like, okay, what have I done before so I don't have to make a new idea? And I found a post from, oh hey, is this a waystone? Yes, it is. Great. I found a post from like a year ago, over a year ago now, that was from when I was doing Colonycraft the last time I tried doing it. I wanted to start with a Skyrim player
no,
house.
they have an enchantment coin. What the fuck?
I tried to make a Skyrim player house at that point, and I kind of just gave up on it and gave up on the project, but I'm like, you know what, I can do that. And thankfully, me, a year ago, did all the work, so all I had to do was log in on a Skyrim save where I already built the house in Skyrim, and I just had to quickly build up another one because I didn't have the tower references that I wanted. And then mocked it up this afternoon. Is the song It's Me? Yes. Try Hard Ninja. Where is you over that way? What is that? Oh, it's just a zombie. Oh, hey, Soulstar. Would you like to do the Night Lich? If I get enough of them.
Sure.
Although we might rely a little heavily on you, because I don't got arranged. Oh, but you're over that way.
Hey, what did I do?
And I kept running and running. I don't have a ranged weapon.
Well, yeah, I heard that. You're just like, you're over there, and I presumed you were talking about me. Oh, yay, copper.
Yeah, I'm slowly coming over to you. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Would you like
I'm just kind of...
cloud in a bottle?
Yes, I would.
And blocks of coal?
Yes, I very much want the blocks of coal. I've been fiending for coal this, like, whole time.
Are there any weapons you would like to make? Like any diamond weapons I can help you make? I got 3 extra diamonds right now.
I'd have to look at the weapons.
If it takes, what is that called? If it needs a pole, I can make one of those for you, too.
I can make a pole. I have the leather now. Just trying to think.
Would you like any recommendations, or?
You can recommend some, yeah, sure.
Let's see. You didn't seem to like slow, because two-handed because of the slow.
Well,
so if need be, a two-handed one, not a two-handed two.
I am putting points into attack speed, so that doesn't matter anymore.
Do you prefer damage or speed or balance?
Wait, what?
Do you prefer damage, speed, or a balance of damage and speed?
Damage, because speed isn't easy to negate.
I'd recommend maybe one of the battle axe then.
I was fully looking at the halberd.
Let me look at
what is the scythe?
halberd.
Kill a villager and catch his soul, then right click on a tombstone.
Born in Chaos
to revive, but be careful, the fallen villager will rise as an undead.
That's a thing with Born in Chaos. It's used to get specific materials and ingredients. 5.5k points. Oh no, are you gonna drown me? Yeah, the halberd's really good too, and especially with the armor piercing.
Is there like a max you can do on some of these, like the 4 attack speed and stuff?
I'm pretty sure the leveling just kind of goes up infinitely. It gets way harder as you go on. After like level 100, it takes like 20 XP to upgrade anything. Okay. You have to put points across everything in order to upgrade. You can't just fully go into one thing.
Well, no, I am just like leveling everything up slowly. But I know which ones like I'm doing, because right now I'm doing health, attack speed, and speed. I'll probably get speed to like where it's not like...
Do you have... I can go make a cuppa.
If you want, can you make me a halberd?
Yeah.
And I'll just hold the glaive.
The bands have a cuppa. Okay, let me go make a cuppa. Here is your halberd. Alright, I have your copper. I completely forgot about that. Alright, I shall be AFK right here. And I'm gonna go make a cuppa.
I'm gonna unbind it. Because I keep clicking N, not M. Can you hear me?
I said I was gonna go AFK. I'm gonna go make a
sorry.
cuppa. Billy Bob has requested.
Lucky. I don't believe I have enough iron. Maybe I do. Actually, I didn't realize I had that much iron. I do. I don't know what I found, but I'm being Hatsune Miku. How do I pick this? How do I equip this? I don't even know what mod this is, but I need to figure out. Well, this is from Come Live. I want to be Hatsune Miku. I gotta figure this out. Wait, how do I do this? How do I access this again? Is it shift? No, it's this. How do I use this? Oh wait, I wanna. How do I equip this? I don't. This is from Minecraft Comes Alive. I need to know.
I return with lavender chamomile.
Dang it. Okay.
What was that about Hatsune Miku?
I have no idea. If you click U and right click, there's just a menu that pops up, and Hatsune Miku is on there, and I want to become Hatsune Miku. What? I'm trying to figure it out.
What are you? What menu?
It's from Minecraft Comes Alive. I have no idea.
What have you clicked to get this?
You right click. You right click. I don't know what I'm doing, but I figured out something.
What did? That doesn't explain anything. What did you right click?
No, literally just click U and right click, and it just pops up. It doesn't matter what you right click.
I don't have what? When I click U, that's my origin because I've changed. I'm just right clicking the air. Nothing is happening.
I said U and right click, the letter U.
I have that as my origins.
You have to swap it off. Real quick then.
Okay, let's
I don't know what I opened, but I don't know how to use this.
Open skin library.
from-
Okay, I see what you found. What do I have open?
It's from Minecraft Comes Alive. I just don't know how to switch to Hatsune Miku.
I think it might
Lucy
just
from
be a
Cyberpunk.
skin you can put onto villagers.
That has to no, because there's like hair and stuff. Is this like something I was supposed to do way before?
I'm assuming
when I
you
was-
couldn't do this menu but prior. I think that's just a skin you can put onto villagers.
No, because these are for players.
No, this is the same model as the villagers.
Is it?
Yes.
Is this just? Dang it! I want Hatsune Miku. This sucks. Playing sucks.
I mean, can you find stuff to be Hatsune Miku on Essential?
Probably, but I don't have money. I'm not doing all that. Oh, I have wings. I'm putting on my wings. Whitefoot for you.
Search. Cosmetics.
There is stuff to be
Search.
Hatsune Miku.
Hatsu. I don't know how to type Hatsu, apparently. Or it's just not giving me results. Hair. Is there? Yeah, there's anime ponytails. There are anime ponytails.
Yeah, that's for Hatsune Miku. I don't have money.
Ah.
But I have wings.
Steal someone's
I've-
skin. Race car's right. Just find
I probably
whoever
could.
has a Hatsune Miku skin and then type in their skin.
Well, I would have just. Well, at that point,
Hold on.
I would just use the Hatsune Miku skin permanently. I like my skin. I just meant it was more of a haha funny. Oh, I found Hatsune Miku in a mod, and I was just gonna comment it randomly. Not really more of a. Oh, I might.
I must be Hatsune Miku.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a child. Erect child. If I can't reach the child. Wait, hold on. I need a third-person view of how ridiculous this looks. What do I have? Is it what? What have I done? What have I done? Keybinds. Yes, I know that is. What have I done? Ah, I found it. Yep, still. Oh! Oh no, he's just that now. I love how ridiculous the combat looks with the claws. Penguin, walk over to where I am. I hit him! Get bonk, bonk, debunk, debunk, bonk. Yes! Bonk. Bonk. Oh. Bonk.
Damn it! I don't have a singular diamond.
If I find 4 more termites, I can get you another diamond.
Oh, it's in an anvil. I have an anvil. Oh,
What
wait,
is
what the
that
fuck
here?
is it in?
There's a creeper. Goodbye,
is.
creeper. Oh, there's a guy. Oh, there's more.
Oh, it's just
Oh,
a
there's a lot
normal
of creepers
land.
down here. I'm just gonna go on the
Motherfucker.
floor. Don't mind me. Nothing to see here. Okay. Anyway. Woo! Bonk. What is this weird thing that is hitting? No, out of here. What is it? Hey, I found a diamond enchanted chestplate. It has projectile protection 4. I kind of already have a diamond chestplate.
I do too. I will just
Oh, hi.
put it on.
You have a weapon. That is not good. That's not good for me. You're not allowed to have that.
What is... I'm very curious, what is the difference between the staffs? Does it matter what the staff make the difference? For the
more charges.
Staffs. Okay. So is reinforced better than like a tier up, or is...
Yes and no. If you make it reinforced, you can't upgrade it past that.
Right, but is...
You have to de-upgrade it.
Oh, I'm taking... well... Yeah, I'm taking this. I don't care.
I'll take those. I'll take those leggings. These staff are fuck you, yes. That took a fucking minute to make, though. But if we do that server, I will remake these staff a fuck you.
It says I'm not already working on it. I don't know how to make it, but...
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll just figure it out. I'm gonna be honest, this is
That's how I got this far.
To get down to these lower levels.
Google's just my best friend.
Okay, so I'll just look up...
Well, not so much anymore, but... Generally, just searching up anything that anybody needs ever has been the #1 way I've done literally anything on the server. The longest time on Sunday, I was trying to figure out Discord on VR headset because I was trying to share my screen. Oh yeah, because we were hanging out with Misty.
Yeah, I saw y'all were online. Ooh, that's...
Hey, I got you a diamond. There you go.
Thank you. That's going towards my staff.
Oh, my tea's probably done steeping.
Curiosity killed the cat.
And do you want to lose your levels, though?
Netherite staff.
That's gonna take so long, dude. That's gonna take you forever. Like, I know good ways to get you netherite, but it does automatically level up the mods by, like... The enemies go to, like, level 20. We've been fighting level 0. So are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah,
are you sure about that?
I could honestly run to the nether real quick.
Have you even made an explorer's compass yet? So I'm pretty sure only I have.
No, because I didn't even... I forgot we have it. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. Just run to a bastion real quick, I'll be fine.
Do you know anything about what's in the nether? At all?
Nope, I'll figure it out.
Do you have any idea what a forbidden castle is?
I will figure it out.
I'm not sure you want to. Or like, what would even be a good source of netherite across all the modded structures that are in there?
I was probably just on a bum rush of vanilla bastion.
Good luck finding a vanilla bastion.
Or just a bastion, because I know Young's probably changes the bastion, not.
I don't think Young's has a bastion mod. And if they do, I do not have it. Aha, buddy, you bogus. You ain't gonna touch me.
You're like trying to convince me not to go to the nether, and I'm still like, yeah, I'll probably just go to the nether.
No, I'm being the voice of reason, so you actually think this out.
Oh, I have no voice of reason.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. I'm telling you what there is to expect within the mod pack. And things you should consider that you don't know. And I'm telling you, if you were struggling down here, you are going to struggle out there and lose like all of your progress.
Down here because I physically couldn't kill anything.
Weren't you saying you were struggling with these lower levels a minute or two ago?
No.
Okay.
I need to figure out how to heal that. It was just a... Oh, I fully was about to hit you. I thought you were a wither. Or wither skeleton, not a wither.
No think, just do.
Ooh, what is this? Ooh, soul star. We might actually
Now we got
fight
2.
the witch. How many do we need? 4?
4. Because we don't need extras because we could go straight to the compass. If you increase your luck, you'd have a better chance of getting more.
I probably will in a bit. I wish I could... I don't know, I feel like it's sucky.
It's useful to upgrade all of them. It is very useful.
Yeah, I just meant like... I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say.
Uh-huh. Get the bonkers. Why can you... Okay. Apparently it's only smelts armor.
Why is it only spawning 1 mob at a time?
Too many mobs elsewhere, because fuck you. Oh,
I'm not
where's
making
that?
the fuck you
Is that
sound
bad?
yet.
Almost. It's fine. Hey, Door Knight! I can actually fight you this time! Get bonked. Yeah, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Thank you. Take your bleed and shove it where the sun don't shine.
Stop shooting at me.
Ah. What?
That's my job.
Okay. Hi, Skellies.
Well, there's just a skeleton shooting at me from the distance, and I'm just like, that's my job. Stop shooting at me.
Oh, I heard something different.
I don't want to know what you heard. It's never good.
Probably.
Not saying anything you hear is bad. I'm just saying it's never good whenever someone mishears something.
Oftentimes, yeah. I could agree to that.
Is the Valor
Hey, what's spawning here? Just a bunch of guys. What you say?
Is the Valor a good enchant?
I believe it steals XP from kills to re-heal stuff.
Never mind.
It's kind of like mending.
I fully was about to just start using a sword with Devour. Do I have?
No, it heals
do.
the sword. It's like mending.
I don't know what this building is, but I want to go in it.
Cake.
Looks like a massive prison.
Oh, that might have been the graveyard thing I was going through, maybe. Oh, are there phantoms in it?
I have no idea.
Are you seeing highlighted phantoms? Let me look
Not
at what
anywhere
layer.
near me.
Okay, good. You're not in the thing I'm thinking of. You're in a different thing. Good.
Well, I'm not in anything just yet. I have free cam apparently. I don't remember ever adding it.
Nightbot! What do you mean? Okay, I can see why Nightbot. Give me your bones is not necessarily a sex-based term, though. I will allow it.
I don't know. I feel like it could be if you're like a
I
skeleton.
understand why it was held back. I understand why, but in this case, no. It is it's a vocal stim I do. Give me your bones. As in, like, a literal, give me your bones. I want to see you dead. That's a diff. I just broke my ankles. Is that a pump gay? Hello, pump gay.
Wait, this
Instead
has
of more
fortune
diamonds?
on it. It has only fortune 1, but that's not bad.
You didn't notice that earlier? I thought that's why you kept it. You could, if you wanted to make a tool leveling table, it's not too expensive. Glowing sex everywhere. You take an enchanter, put 3 obsidian on the bottom and surround the sides and top of the enchanter with 3 gold.
Right, what does a tool leveling table do?
Tool leveling table upgrades the enchantments. It does, however, require ores to do so, and ores will have different levels or like uses. But it does mean you can get Fortune 30.
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
you were telling us about this.
Yeah, that's how I got the Staff of Fuck You for Explosion 30.
How do you turn the termite shards into? Oh, you need.
It's 9. Yeah. I've
You
given
said
you a
4
sneeze
earlier,
of my
so I'm
vocal
thinking it's
sins
4.
too. Are you trying to goad me, Pumpkin, to make your sneeze of compilation right now? Hey, digging claws. On diamond shovel. Diamond. I got
What is
Fortune
this?
100 once. Ooh. I am
is
so
this?
curious, because Fortune 30 alone is so fucking ridiculous. Fortune 30 alone, you can mine 1 piece of lapis, and it fills your inventory with lapis.
I just need.
My copper's just absolutely broken, and the best thing ever for tool leveling tables. Where tism is. What?
What?
Oh.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Word games.
Good to know.
When in doubt. Oh, ethereal spirit. Ethereal spirit. Ethereals. There we go. Brain had a brain. It is the streamer
I
word
wasn't
game when
doing
you
it well.
run out of things to say or do and you're trying to stall the moment out, you just start rhyming.
Mm.
Let me take a tick of damage. Maybe a few ticks. Whee. Come on. Thank you. I just want to eat the last piece of cake. This is the twisted tism.
Dark metal floor. Oh, I have an enchanting.
Why does that
table.
sound
Is
like
the
a dance
enchanting table
move?
more important than the? Oh, then I still need another diamond. But is the enchanting table more important than the tool leveling table?
I was a fucking termite.
Is the enchant? Is there anything the enchanting?
The
table
only
is
reason the enchanting table would be more important is if you didn't already have enchantments. But you already have enchantments, so. Oh, hey, shit! I
Not
can
really
get calamari.
good
Why haven't I been
enchantments.
doing this? Give me calamari. I was just raving about this in a video that I posted yesterday. Give me that calamari. Oh my god! Speaking to rhyming. Ooh. Diamonds, please don't be. Thank you. It's actual diamonds.
Yeah, I think I will be smelting that. I have a lot of those. Do you have apples? Like, do you just have like a bunch of apples?
But no.
And I need apples.
Why? Out of curiosity.
Apples.
Trying just hate the doctor's
Golden
office or
apples.
something, or
No, golden apples. The good apples.
oh. Oh, Siamese skeleton. Hi, buddy. Goodbye. Oh, some baby skellies. That's so cute when they die.
A lot of enchants. Oh wait, I could do that because I have, I believe.
Potch Potch sent me a poem of on Valentine's. He had to explain it to me because I don't understand poetry. Oh.
That's nice.
What is here? What is? Is? Twizzlers? Oh, Twizzlers. That sounds good. Twizzlers?
I'm too autistic for this. What?
Twizzlers? The candy?
I know what a Twizzler is, but you said like 30 other things and all of them passed through my head.
Twiz, rhymes.
Oh,
I'm still rhyming.
got it. Makes a lot of sense. Do you have like a piece of any form of meat?
Not a lot. Not enough to go around.
Your piece of meat.
What?
Just any, like, raw meat.
No.
Damn. I think I need that raw.
Oh wait, I should just upgrade these. Hold on. What am I thinking? Duh.
Oh, what a string. I don't know why I'm just sitting here saying.
Yep. Boop. What? Oh, you have to go through gold first. Right.
Yeah, I have plenty of gold if you need it.
I think I know. Where am I? Where did... Oh, I'm all the way down here. That was literally a piece of gold ore right there. Problem solved. Oop. Oh, I do have one singular piece of raw chicken.
Okay. Can I possibly get it from you?
Yeah, give me a sec. I'll run back.
Or, well, take your time. You
Dope
don't need to rush.
I was gonna head... No, like, I'm saying I will head over to you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to, like, be doing all that. You can just, like,
I'm telling you that I can head over, so I'm going to head over.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a haiku. I didn't know what that was. Oh.
I love haikus. They're so fun.
I don't know why my brain immediately went to this. Isn't there an anime that, like, the title is haiku or something? Volleyball? Brain's grasping for something and it's lost. It is very lost. I have no
idea what you're talking about. You said...
I don't know either. I'm gonna dig myself in the ground for a second.
Something...
Am I barely connecting words that do not exist together?
The first thing I thought of was the summer Hikari died, but I probably am saying the name.
You know what I immediately thought of? I thought of Haikyuu, the volleyball anime.
Yeah, I don't tend to watch sports. The only sport anime I've actually watched was
I haven't I can count the animes I've watched on one hand. Actually, it might be two now, and that is not one of them. I just know of a fair amount because of internet and friends.
Fair.
I've watched first couple seasons of Fairy Tail because I had teenage boy cousins. And you probably know why they were watching it.
Yes. I just scratched my head for a second and think, wait, what? Oh, Fairy Tail.
Yeah. Keys and shit, something plot. I watched Fairy Tail, those are so termites. Name. You think I know the name? Or on Host Club. Agretsuko. Dungeon Meshi.
Dungeon Meshi was so good.
Absolutely. I need to sit down and read the manga.
Yeah,
There's another one. I've lost it. There was another one. I've watched quite a few Studio Ghibli movies, but those are movies, not shows. I'm trying to think of the shows I've watched.
I thought it was Ghibli.
Studio Ghibli movies. Ghibli, whichever it is. I haven't. What is? I swear, there's another one. What is your name? What is your name?
When?
Little Witch Academia.
Oh yeah, I watched that one too. That one wasn't too bad. I have diamonds now. I have 8 diamonds.
Ooh, nice.
I found a big cave.
I love it. I love being a phantom, I say as I walk through wall and die. Oh, hey, by the way,
Yeah,
hammers are in this. I think that's worth mentioning because you're mining right now. The hammers are in here.
Yeah, but they're expensive.
The cheap hammers are not. They're still useful for your purposes at this moment. Because it's literally 3,
It's a 1x3. It's a 3x3 by 1.
Not what it takes to make them, I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's still just, it's 3 and gets 3 sticks.
Probably? Maybe? No. Yes. Yes. It's 3 sticks, 3 ingots. Oh, I don't have to... I'm gonna save those.
Where? Kunst? What?
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 Oh, you're down here. Okay.
Ow.
My ankles.
Ooh, diamonds.
Aha! Whoop. No backpack. Why was I running to you? I was bringing something.
Oh, these are termites.
Hey, big boy! Pressure! Oh, you wanna know something really funny about the Phantom build? I just I can absolutely break the Warden because I'm close enough. If I'm fighting directly underneath him, I'm close enough that I can deal a lot of damage pretty quickly, but I'm also far away enough that the game just kind of breaks. And he doesn't know what to do, so he just sits there and lets me fight him. Oh!
Yeah, I remember seeing that video of you doing that.
Oh! Problem solved. Right in front of me somewhere.
Oh yeah, damage. I'm like, why am I taking damage? I take damage from water.
What?
I feel like in Darian's kind of... It's very simple. Oh, that's a mimic. Hi, mimic. Ooh. I want you.
There we go. And there's no waste stone. Okay, do I have... No, I don't. Oh, diamonds! I mean, yeah, sure, worth it, but also I might get stuck down here. Have you found any waste stones recently? Oh, that's a player. Keep it, bip, bip, bip.
I don't like the looks of that guy. He looks like infected and not in the good way. How did I die? I was full health.
Overpowered. Big boy. Oh, it's a clown! Clown.
I'm nowhere near. I'm taking damage because it's raining.
Oh, I love nausea. Oh, I love the intoxicating potion. They're great. Intoxicating decoction.
This isn't fun.
You're telling me. Aha, big boy! You creepy boy, swarmer.
Can I stop getting random ticks of damage?
Oh, you got little bone imps. They're cute. Bunch of... Oh, I found where you died! I found the guy you died to! He probably spawned some imps on you. Or,
No,
but no, it said it died to you.
I was killing the imps.
Or he
did
died
spawn
to
the imp. Like, one-shot me after being full health.
I don't know then. Oh, he had like 10 health left, so yeah, that checks.
Oh, he can't even sleep through it.
Death Totem saves from lethal damage and grants temporary power in exchange for your hunger. And Orb of the Summoner. Oh, I have calamari to eat! I can do that. I don't have to waste my golden apples.
Oh, can it stop raining?
I can't wait for you to read the... What? If you think about the B-movie as an animated movie. Can't wait for you to read these back later. Smile. I could be as unhinged as I want right now. Never mind, I got caught. I have a notification alert. When people chat, I can see it. I've had too many times where I just didn't notice people chatting, so at some point I found a way so I could hear a little notification blurb
I missed horribly.
when people chatted. I might need to change the sound effect because it's just the Minecraft orb right now, like when you get XP at all.
Oh,
Which ain't always the most helpful.
You can punch trees. Or not trees, but you can punch wood. You can get wood without an axe.
Yeah. There we go. Get me upstairs, please. There we go.
Can it not be raining?
I'll take berries. They're shit food, but at least it's food. I do anything with it. Uses. I can make a fox trophy. I can make a berry jam jar, and that is it. Okay. Yeah, no, it's because I've been talking for a bit long.
What am I taking?
Fix it.
Stop giving me rain damage. Stop giving me rain damage.
Oh wait, it's raining! I don't have to worry for once! I can walk around and not have to waste my goddamn hunger.
This is torture.
Yeah, so I ran Enderin once and I didn't like it. I was not a fan.
But it's just, I don't like the rain.
Gotta go, lunch is over. 07. Alright, bye-bye. I'm Pumpkin. Good luck with works.
God,
oh, the frickin'... Yeah, the... Oh, lag. The... What? Okay, something's...
The thing is I'm almost
Something is being silly with me. Yeah, to move down south and marry a dancer. I would never let you go. Anyway. Sometimes a lyric hit and you just gotta sing.
I've almost made it to a waystone so I can go get my stuff back.
Nice. Apparently I'm surviving off of berries for a while.
Can you go sit by where I died?
Billy. Oh, because I was accidentally hitting a tree. Yeah. You should have a waypoint where you died.
Oh yeah.
Yet I'm not near it anymore.
Can I collect one of them just so I would stop taking damage from the rain.
You're hitting a tree. Yeah, that checks. That make a lot of sense. Also, I need to actually like drink. By drink before I forget, because I have already forgotten about my tea several times now.
Oh, this is the wrong one. Oh,
Hey, there's a creepy guy here. I saw that. I saw him. Is he gone? I saw the eyeballs.
I very much hate the
yes, they're gone.
The lag. The lag is what's killing me at this point.
Oh, Bruiser. Hi, Bruisey boy. Hey, Bruisey. Hey, Bruisey, Bruisey. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a great time. Ooh, tower. Fakey tower. Oh, chickens. Get a bonk. Oh, I have so many levels I need to be using. That's a problem. There we go.
What is coming out?
Hi, zombie. Get out of here. Chicken. I got you. Wait, Kim.
No.
Oh. I wish.
Oh, get combo? Get combo?
What's this?
Ooh, combo?
Danger,
Ooh,
collapsing
opt
mine.
up.
Oh, well.
Yeah, get opt up. Boom. I have reach. I swear to God, I have reach. Oh, on my
The glaive? Or...
No, just my fist. I swear I have reach with my hands.
It might be better combat that's making it feel like that.
Can it stop raining, please? I'm actually to the point of mining up dirt just so I can have cover.
Hey, boop. Haha. Haha. No. Is there anything in here? Oh, yes, there was. No, there isn't. Okay.
No, and there's a skeleton. Swimming sideways.
Oh, hey, it's thunder. I heard that. Well. Hey, battle tower! I see that. I see you.
You're enjoying this too much.
I hope so. I made it so I could.
No, you're enjoying the rain too much.
I love the rain in real life as well.
I love the rain too, but right in game right now I don't.
That is a you problem.
PSMP I don't either.
I thought you loved the raid in specifically for that.
Specifically for what?
For your num num num.
I like the rain on the PSMP. Yeah.
The way you followed up that sentence made it sound like you hate it right now and in the PSMP, implying you also hate it in Passion SMP.
No, I actually very much like it on the Passion SMP. It's a matter of right now, I just don't like it because I'm an Endarian.
Yeah.
So no.
I heard that. I heard the child. I heard that child. I wish you could actually do something with berries, but no. No. Not allowed.
Okay. I didn't leave
Ring of fire.
Myself.
I could have been making toast this whole time! I forgot about toast. Hey, if it's any condolences, if it's any help, I currently hear an Enderman freaking the fuck out next to me.
Me. It is literally me.
I just hear whoop, 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 whoop. Let's get rid. Excuse me, thank you.
I didn't realize
Get
how
bonked.
fast that was where I had died. Okay.
Whoop, 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 whoop. There we go.
My brethren don't like the rain, and I don't like it either. At least on here. Leave me alone. Yeah, leave me alone, zombie. I don't. Why are you white face?
What?
Oh, that was just the back of your hood. That sounded really bad.
Yeah, a little bit.
It was one of the player things, and it just looked like they had. No, you have a sword.
There we go.
But yeah, I got my stuff back.
Yeah, debunk.
I just have to get my levels back.
Your levels are... Oh, you mean reallocate them?
What do you mean?
Do you already have your levels? Do you mean like putting them back in the spots that you need to? AKA reallocating them? Whenever you die, you automatically get half of your levels back.
Yeah, I had to literally just spend all my levels on points, and you lose all your points when you die.
Yeah, That's what I'm saying. Oh, lag. Lovely. How long shall I lag for? Is that whoa? That's how long I shall lag for.
Yeah, because
Reanimated ruins map. Lovely. Oh, there I go through the floor.
Aren't you normal? Aren't
Waste
you kind of partial to going to the floor?
With the shitty Herobrine summon. Oh, y'all are still here. Let me just get rid of y'all. Thank you. I will go die. Floor after this.
Why is there a clown?
Because he is. That's what he do. That's his job, don't you know?
You sound Canadian.
Not check out. I tend to pick up dialect here and there.
Who do you know is Kate that is Canadian?
I watch a few YouTubers that are.
It's so bad.
Hmm?
It's
What
so
is?
strong. The accent, I don't know why, but it's so thick.
I don't know what to tell you, I'll be honest. Hey, I found a new dungeon. But yeah, every now and again a random accent decides to appear, and I couldn't tell you how or why. They come and go as they please.
Surface.
Hey, the rain's over.
You gotta be kidding me, really?
Perfect timing, ain't it? Oh.
Now I can pull out my bow. How much damage does this do? Oh, that's a lot of durability, though.
Yeah.
I don't care how much damage it does.
Yeah. You cannot put you cannot put I can't remember if it's mending or unbreaking. I know for a fact it's you can't do unbreaking. I can't remember if you are able to put mending on it or not. I could not tell you.
On what?
The staff, I assume.
Oh no.
That's what you're talking about. Oh. Hey, it's race car! Oh, I clicked on nothing. Hey, it's race car! Bonk.
What a race car? Is race car joining? Oh.
No.
No, the
Boop.
player.
Die. Whoop. There we go.
You went to bed. Race car went to bed?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember. I'm gonna just be quiet because I think
I think you're trying to grasp for a reason and is making things up instead.
Wait, what?
Like in trying to figure out an answer, you're just making up an answer instead.
Sure.
Billy Bob said, "Are you awake?"
Okay.
Power glove, finally! My one punch hand. There we go. Where's this?
I got my payback.
There we go. You got your payday bar?
Yeah. Back in the fucking building again. Wait, can I get into? Can this lead into a bigger cave?
Oh shit! Bright sun, sunrise. I'm not safe to anymore. I've looked at it on and off again. I really need to add. I'm pretty sure there's a sleep mod where you can just pass at a certain amount of time that you want to pass, and I should really just add that. That'd be amazing for. Oh, mountain! big mountain! We're gonna climb to the top of the mountain. Forget the Void Blossom. I'm a mountain climber now.
No, yeah. What am I doing? The Void Blossom.
Yeah, mountains.
I'm
currently standing at Y180, and I'm looking 100 blocks above me at the top of this mountain. I love Tectonic so much. I really want to add Tectonic for Season 3 of Fashion SMP. And Terralif. This will be fantastic.
I mean, I'm down.
Fantastic in this, and I would love to have that next season. Plus, just more exploration mods, honestly. More structures for us to have fun with instead of just, hey, yeah, I'm bored. You want to go hit a trial chamber?
Even though we have,
I have no milk
structures.
duds. Oh no. Well, they're just vanilla structures, though. And they're pretty rare. I mean, like, to the extent that there's structures everywhere in this one, I would love for us to have a bunch of structures to go around in. Or hell, even take over as our own base.
That's fair.
Hey, another battle tower! After I'm done with this battle tower, I'll head back. I didn't get nearly as much food as I want. Actually, well, you know what? Forget the battle tower. I'm far enough out. Let's find a new village. And then I can steal all their hay bales.
Well, that's still why I have bread.
villages.
I don't remember where I got the
Search.
bread from, but I'm pretty sure that's where I still have bread from.
Oh, did I not? I didn't. I don't need specifically that. I'm not looking for a desert village. I just want villages.
I'm lagging horridly.
Probably because I'm standing at the tippy top of like a 200 tall mountain. Search group. There we go, this way. Yeah, I'm standing at 274. That would be why.
Good to know.
Don't worry, my computer also hates me and I am actively leaving.
Well,
This is the one downside that I'm no longer running Elytrian, is I can't just fly down this beautiful giant mountain.
I mean, we could go to the end.
I am not doing that.
What's wrong with the end?
If I remember what I was looking at in the configs correctly, I think the Ender Dragon's locked to level 50.
That's not bad.
Do you want to deal with dying it by one shot by an Enderman? Because you accidentally looked at it? Because I've done that many times.
I'll be perfectly fine. It's my brother.
Oh yeah, you would be, huh? I think.
I actually have no idea if that's like a passive thing. I'm fully.
I'm not sure, actually. I really couldn't tell you. Hey, I got a cross necklace.
I'd have to look at my origin.
I don't think so. I know for a fact, you're afraid of pumpkins? I couldn't tell you anything else.
I don't even know how that works. Like, I've never...
If another player wears a pumpkin, you can't see them. Yeah, it's literally just that. It is just that.
That's kind of shitty. Please don't be wearing pumpkins around.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
You better go find a pumpkin, aren't you?
No, why would I?
You already found one. I hardly half the time even notice when you're behind me, so this is unfair and cruel and unusual punishment. Oh my god, can I stop getting this Minecraft music in my ear? Stop!
Hey, Bales.
Where is it?
Steal all the way. Oh. I hit a log. Steal all the way. Keep hitting logs. All the way. Mine. Oh, I'm dying!
What is the... Ooh, oh.
Yeah?
What is... Ooh, maybe...
Yeah?
What is, like, the best thing to do with a diamond?
No, you tell me. What do you want to do or intend to do?
Wait, oh wait, I can turn this into a diamond one. Why would I waste a whole block of gold? Well, I have like 26 diamonds. I don't know what like I should use or do with said 26 diamonds.
Using a tool leveling table to upgrade something?
It's fair, I could probably do that.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Exactly what I wanted.
Nice. Okay, so now I have...
This is not where I wanted to be.
Why are you sprinting at me?
This is where I wanted to be. Where have you gone? Where?
Me?
Oh, you're all the way up there. Okay. Let's go to you. That's the wrong way. This way.
So I have no idea who you're talking to.
I talk aloud. That is part of the job description.
Fair. I don't remember. I think you... Oh, you only need 15. I have 21. Okay, that works out.
Don't bring me down. Oh, I was gonna say something earlier with Billy Bob's Milk Duds, because he's commented he doesn't have any. I love Milk Duds. I can't have them anymore. I've lost 3 separate teeth to them.
Crazy.
3 completely different occasions. One of the occasions I was casually eating on them, and then I felt something hard in the Milk Duds, and then I picked it out of my mouth, and there was a piece of teeth. There was one of my teeth in there. Good thing I was a child, so it was just a baby tooth, but...
Venomous. I don't have levels for this. Venomous.
I'm gonna die doing this, aren't I? We're gonna find out.
Hi.
Hello. I don't know how much that worked. Alright, this is the setup. Okay. Are you ready to have an entire cooking station?
Sure, you have 40 levels.
No, I do not.
Damn. I need 40 levels.
What? What? What?
Or, well,
what?
I need a B roll and then I need levels, but... Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Please don't break.
Yep.
You're fine, I have my own. Motherfucker.
Oh no.
I accidentally crafted 2 leggings.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah. You ready for the toast factory? Oh, I placed one wrong. Toast factory! Oh, I should get rid of that just in case. Don't want to lose any of my toast. Ah, toast factory! Toast factory working overboard. My toast!
I really want to loot. Would this be better to just keep? I might have wasted a lot of diamonds by accident.
No? What'd you do?
I don't know.
Can I cook a meat bundle on
Well,
it? Nope.
I believe so.
I wish.
Oh.
Nope.
Well, I'm trying to think. Would diamond leggings be better than Prot 3 Unbreaking 3 like iron leggings?
Just upgrade it.
Oh my lordy lord! I completely forgot I could do that.
There you go. I already popped one down.
I did waste a lot of diamonds. I have a smithing table, but thank you.
Chicken takes a lot longer to cook than bread. Okay, there we go. Chicken! And that's a wrap on the bread factory.
Oh, you never did bring me that piece of meat, that singular piece of meat.
That's why I ran back to you. Oh, hey, lucky thing. I have one more in my inventory. Well, two actually, but...
Thank you.
Do we think we about ready for Void Blossom? And we can get a wrap on this?
Oh, yeah, that is why we are doing Void Blossom. Yeah.
It is directly south of us. 200 blocks.
If you want to start digging, then yeah.
Oh, right, because you need... Yeah, okay, hold on.
So I'm gonna let you start digging while I wrap up. Because I'm almost done.
I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. Diggy diggy hole. Digging a hole.
I think you'd make a very nice dwarf.
Thank you. Certainly trying to grow the beard, but it ain't happening.
You're too much of a twink to grow a beard.
I did have a twink face, but no more. I used to be far worse. But I do much prefer how I look with a beard over not.
I don't know.
Babyface don't fit me. It do not fit me. Yeah, this is good. Let's one more. There you go.
I mean, to be fair, I've never seen you with a beard, so...
I think the only time I've shown up on Facecam lately has been with my beard.
I think I've missed, like, the only streams you did with Facecam.
I did one when I was reviewing old clips.
I seen that, but I don't remember if you did have a beard. You probably did, and I wasn't paying much attention.
I just don't have a heavy beard, is the thing. I just have, like, the scruffle. I have a shaggy beard, is what's going on.
I will trade you my whatever thing that grows out hair for your lack of.
It's not a lack of, it's just not growing in the right spots, is my thing. Unfortunately, I have the family genetic where my hair grows in like 3 days. I gotta pluck eyebrows every fucking 3 days, and it's annoying as hell. So I can trim, I have to trim the beard a lot. It just doesn't grow fast in the spots I want it to.
Do you have water?
Yes.
Can I possibly get, or Minecraft water, not person water?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
You're talking to the person who always has water on them. Yes. Deep Dark? We haven't found it on this one, actually. Now I come to think of it.
No, you're not.
How much you want to bet it was underneath that mountain I was in?
I
was on top
sure
of.
Was about to say, you probably should dig down and find that deep dark.
Well, I don't need to dig down, but...
You get what I meant.
Yeah.
I'm
love
stuck
being
with
speedy.
digging. I mean, I don't mind digging, it's just
Tunnel big enough to spawn mobs, great. Yeah, we'll just make one more. One more. And then I'm gonna go check, because I must find the Deep Dark. I must fulfill the prophecy. Oh, hey! We don't need you here. Out of here. Thank you. Just gonna sweep around. Yeah, thank you. I said sweep around. Around. Just
sweep the legs.
It's a lava pit. So we're gonna take a hard left and then continue on our merry way.
I'm fairly
Oh, tough.
curious
Thank
if
you
this
so much.
works.
You're so much faster.
Nope.
Very slowly.
Oh, okay. That would have been nice to have. Oh, but I can disenchant you, I guess. Yay, 17 levels. Still not enough.
Almost there. There we go. Hi, baby boy. Don't mind me. I'm just digging away to you. Thank you. I'll be on my way. There's a waystone right over there I want to get to. Yep, I'm gonna be right on my way. Don't mind me.
I just blew myself up.
Ah, well.
I had my staff out and was collecting in inventories, then proceeded to hit myself with a wither skull.
If I went around and wanted to, I could make a toast sandwich. Almost tempted to make a toast sandwich.
How hard is the Void Blossom in this? I feel like I'm over-preparing.
I want at least diamond armor, because in iron armor, the level 0 mobs were wrecking me. But I'm not going to bother enchanting it.
I'm not
Perhaps.
bothering with enchanting my armor, but I just want to enchant my weapon.
This is not where I want to be. Alright, this is the best I got. Mountain! Show me your deep dark.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna... Sharp
Oh, wait,
2.
hold on. Waystone, please. Thank you.
Let me get 20 levels.
Is there another? That's a dripstone.
14 levels for sharp 2 or just...
Nope, that's not one. There's another one over here. Can I steal a waystone from you?
That is very expensive.
No. Okay. Cave. You know, we're gonna... There it is! I was gonna save us a lot of time and just check with free cam. Yes, indeedly. There it is!
I kind of...
Should I kill a warden real quick, just for the hell of it? I'm gonna kill a warden real quick.
Do you have a waste? No, because waystones don't share. Never mind. I need a deep dark. Do you have like a tunnel there from where I am?
No. Oh, that's a lava lake down below me. That's great. That would have been deaf. That would have been a heavy deaf. That was still slightly deaf. Hey, any of y'all got a shrieker? Hey, there's a shrieker. Boink. Come on, boink. Boink. Warden advances. A reaper laugh. You're dead. Dead. Come on, dead. Deadify. I'm gonna deadify your leader. Deadify. Come on.
My way over towards you.
Come on. Thank you, buddy. Dead. Bonkus. I'm not dealing with the second one. That's all I wanted to do. Misty, hi! You're smelly. It's bedtime. Okay, bye. Thank you, Misty. Which one is... No, that's closer. Alright, the Warden Guild. Time to get, time to get a dictionary. Time to get the Void Blossom.
I need...
You got a few minutes. I'm still walking back.
Well, I need to get over to where you were. I need the skulk.
I am like... Let me look at... I am like
need
almost 1,000 away from you.
Why did I have to pick the one
And
that
in a
has,
mountain.
Like, the shittiest, like,
I
movement?
don't think it's gonna happen. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Can you get like 40 levels and then...
I think we'll be fine. I think it's okay.
I walked into the wrong place.
Hmm. Explanation incoming, or?
Oh, I walked to where the Void Blossom was.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's where the Void Blossom was.
Yeah, don't do that. Oh, hey, wait, Waystone. Thank you! I want to steal that. Give me that.
I'm not extracting, I swear.
Don't worry, I'm not worried about it in this.
I was digging up because I'm looking for a cave. And I hear that there's a cave above me.
Yeah, go for it.
Somewhere near me. And I hit diamonds. I am curious what the heck this building is.
Oh, that's a lava lake. I need to avoid that.
That's that building.
But yeah, Phantom's dope. That's absolutely my #1 favorite Origins class. Like, of course there is the heavy downside, but... it just takes so much goddamn food.
I don't know, I feel like I didn't pick a bad class for this. It's not...
Shit.
I don't feel like it's a
How?
bad class.
Oh, there we go, I'm back. Where did I? When did I? How did I? Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just gonna run around this corner. Thank you. Goodbye. Have a great day. Oh, hey, this thing. Forgot about you. Oh, secret room. Exit via ladder. Critical thunder. I don't need y'all corruption. Oh, that was a loaded one. I can bring you bottles of enchanting. I just found 13.
That'd be nice.
It's
It's a little bit extra.
That is a
XP.
death trap. That is just straight up a death trap. Okay. Nice. What is the death trap attached to? Is attached to that. Okay. Noted.
The fact that I'm getting achievements.
Underground crypt? Oh,
scares
you're
me.
in the thing I'm in, I think. Yeah. This is where I just found the XP. You're through this wall. Hi. Use your waddles.
What is dark iron for?
It's just crafting. Ah, hey, I'm back in the Void Blossom. Breaking my ankles. There we go. Let me place a waste down here.
Yeah, we're just above
Blossom.
the Void Blossom.
Yep. That's how I found the
Are
thing.
you starting the Void Blossom?
Nope, I was placing down a waystone.
Oh, we are literally just above the Void Blossom.
Yep.
I just fell into the Void Blossom. Let's start it.
You can just walk away from it. And he'll calm down. You can just walk away from it and he'll calm down. And he'll come back again the next time. He doesn't despawn until we kill him.
Okay.
Yeah, we good. Don't worry about it.
Because I want to go back into that crypt. I want to see, because I feel like I can probably get some decent
What is
loot from
in
there. Just...
Ah, this is the room I was just in. Okay.
Oh, I'm clicking way too far for my Z key.
Dark iron block. Yep. You bonked. You need to bonkish. Cure illness. Aha! Corruptive indicator, goodbye. Is that a hand? That's a hand. Where? Here? Oh, hi! I'm blind. Hello. Is there a spawner up there? Oh, yes. I see the spawner.
I really thought that was netherite.
No.
It's dark iron.
Yeah.
That would have been helpful if it was the thing I thought it was.
I'm trying to think if there is anything in the overworld that could give netherite, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I could tell you the things in the nether that give you netherite.
I mean,
Let me play my
digging gives you
Minecraft parody.
netherite.
Thank you.
So just digging gives you netherite.
But I'm talking
In the
structures.
nether.
Structures.
I know, I'm just saying.
I know, but we're talking structures.
Yeah, I know, I'm joking myself. Oh, I thought that was diamonds.
Now there's a top level too. A second level. Hi, Akabite. Goodbye.
Ooh, those are nice.
Good up Sunday. Now this great water. Hey, I kind of want that. Source of evil? What? Oh, you've obtained corruption. I want this. Okay. I already got this. Okay, I've been in here before. Got it. Oh, that actually scared me. Hi, Rafe. Goodbye. Mute yourself. No. Batman. There we go. Thank you. That should be enough. If I remember how things work. Wait. I don't think I remember how things work. How do things work?
Ooh,
Probably not.
you are strong. Both of you are.
Okay. What?
Nothing.
There we go. Got a warp stone. Should have made that way earlier.
I just didn't have the pearls, and I just got the pearls now.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Back in the furnace room. Oh. Monk. So, I want to ask real quick, just so I'm aware I know. Do you want a proper boss fight, or do you just want to kill the guy?
Ooh, I'm very confused as to the difference.
I could just literally stand underneath him and kill the fuck out of him, and we could be done.
Oh, well, that would be very anticlimactic, I believe.
Alright, then we do this legit.
Because literally all of the preparation I've been doing would go to waste.
Bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye, Billy Bob.
Oh yeah, more ender pearls. Says I'd be wrong. Can I stop? You're not cool.
I forgot about my tea again.
Can I get... No mind, because we're not even gonna be able to do that. That's fine.
Was this a fighter base, huh? I think it is. Probably. We good? We ready?
Yeah, I'm going.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Hi, buddy. Oh, thank you. Let's get you a safe way down.
Oh, I could have just done that.
Yeah, right. More of a safe way down for me, then.
I actually might just kill it with my bow.
Oh yeah, we're kind of a little more overpowered than I thought. Oh, it's gonna it's gonna do the scenes. Okay. Go kill the things. Oh wait, do I still have? Yes. That's not helpful. Is this helpful? No. None of this is helpful. Oh, they made this easier. This is baby. This used to be obsidian. This is baby mode. What is this bull?
Yeah, I just shot it to death.
Nice. Yeah, it is just the easiest of the bosses. It's so easy, especially with the leveling.
Yeah. I literally only have 1 level in heart, so I have like 1 extra heart, but I have too much gear for it to matter. Also,
Yeah.
this is what I've been shooting it with.
I got like 2 of my hearts. Oh, there we go, full 3. Oh, something. Oh, you're on fire, that's what. Oh, now I'm gonna actually die. No.
With
oh, that was my waste stone. That was not a random thing. That was a warp stone. Whoop, I kind of needed that. Oh yeah, the emerald bow, right. Hey, I don't want to die. I will die, I'm saying that. I don't want to die. Where did I drop that?
I know. I don't know. Well, now I feel like very underwhelmed. I even said let's have like the real boss fight. I feel very underwhelmed.
Trying to think over. Infernal's a little too much.
I mean, you said we were gonna like stop after this, so we can, if you want, we can run this another day.
Next time we could do the Lich, because I still have those 3. I'm still trying to seriously find where I put the warp stone. You have something amethyst looking in your inventory.
No.
Warp stone. I dropped a warp stone. An amethyst looking thing.
No.
Did you pick up something that looks amethyst? Okay. Or like a gem, I guess, would be the better description.
Totally not. It's so big. It is so big in my hands.
You're jumping around. Obviously, I'm not going to see it. Thank you.
No, it's just so... No, I was laughing because I only just put it in my hands and I went into F5 and it's big in my hands. That's all. I wasn't laughing because I had it in my hands.
I still got those 3 soul stars, so we could do the Night Lich next time.
Yeah, sure.
Nice.
Maybe next time I can actually level up and I'm down to like fully complete the pack. Because to complete the pack is just beat the bosses, right?
Yeah.
Well,
the Obsidiolith's going to be the annoying one for us, because we would want Elytras to fly up to wherever it may be. Because it spawns its own island in the middle of the end.
That is fair. I mean, I have range.
I'm saying it is in the middle of the void.
I know. I get what you're saying.
I don't think you were. But yeah, in large part, most of them are pretty easy here or there. Gauntlet, just kind of annoying, but I think we could get through them pretty fast if we're strong enough. Otherwise, the only big one that I think would be a bit of a struggle, aside from getting to Obsidiolith, would be Incendium's Infernal, Blazing Inferno, because he has a set wave that you have to survive. It is just a straight up survive it.
Okay. I mean, I feel like we could.
Yeah.
Probably need to
we could absolutely can. It's just a question of how annoying is it going to be to get there.
Right. Oh wait, Obsidian. Can I possibly borrow your water bucket? That
right.
hurts.
Right, yeah. Alright, I'm gonna wrap up stream while you're doing that, and then we can log off.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna put myself in a wall. That would be the smart choice here. There we go.
I mean, I just need 6 and I'm almost done, so...
Okay. Oh, right, your tool leveling table.
Oh, I haven't made one.
No, I'm saying that's what you're going for.
Yeah. I mean, unless you want me to collect enough for another.
We could just make a portal elsewhere, find it. The stronghold guaranteed has a finished nether portal.
Okay. I know for a fact it has enough lava for at least one.
No, I'm saying the stronghold in this mod pack has a finished nether portal.
I know.
It does not have the young stronghold.
Oh.
It's not Young's. It is a completely different one.
Hmm.
It's a far bigger stronghold, though, for a lot of loot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
And we're guaranteed to see it from the surface. Pretty much, unless it's under a mountain.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I'll have to show you that next time, because that's going to be our fastest ticket to the nether, too, and more leveled up things for us. We could adventure along the way.
We could set that up as our home base, since if we're planning on playing on us more, we do need now in home base, so we could set that up as a home base.
Absolutely. Hi.
I'm logging off next to you.
Okay.
Just because, yeah.
Alright.
I mean, it's slightly bigger. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I go close up stream. I forgot I was still muted in here. I go close up stream. Bye-bye. What don't... Okay. Alright. That'll be it. Thank you all for joining me. Tomorrow, I think we'll do another evening stream. I need to finish up that mountain. And hopefully we can also make a path over to make a bunch of the server paths too. So we'll get started on 1, finish up the mountain, 2, do a path over to skip space. And it's probably all we can get done that stream, but this week we also want to make bridges over to Josh's base, Josh the Rook, and also slowly make our way over to Penguin's base with even more bridges. That'll be it for tonight. I probably will cut this stream and yesterday's stream down into, or not yesterday, the day before. This stream and last stream into a video. And I think with all that said and done, that'll be it. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. I don't think there's anybody to raid. Do I know anybody to raid? Can we find somebody I'd like to raid? That's fun. I haven't done that in a minute. Is there anybody I would like to raid? Minecraft Modded. That is not how you spell that. I'm hearing myself again. Minecraft Modded. Dungeon Heroes. Better MC Hardcore. It's not a lot of us. It's not a whole lot streaming right now. It's just those two. Nah. I think we're just gonna end off here then. Alright. I hope you all have a good night. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.